Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Raising Good Parents. Today we are talking about kids and food. And a lot of times we talk about picky eaters and we talk about starting solid foods and getting them off of French fries and chicken nuggets. And it often, I think, comes to talking about, the parent and the mindset and everything like that. And I'm super excited today to get to talk with Dani Lebovitz about food from the child perspective and how to create food explorers. And you have a very active presence online and website and books and all sorts of resources for families. And people will recognize you from Kids Food Explorers and that Instagram handle and account and everything that goes along with that. But Dani, could you start and maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this area and decided to focus on the education that you do for parents and families?
Absolutely. So thank you so much first for having me here. I'm really excited to talk about all things fun with food, especially with your pediatric focused and giving parents more tools in their tool belt to help feed their kiddos, because that is a constant stress. So a little bit about myself. I am a registered dietitian, a master's in health communications, and I'm actually a sports dietitian. I have a specialty certification in sports nutrition, and I'm a diabetes educator. So I have a specialty credential in diabetes education. But I've always loved working with children. And when I was 15, I started my first job working at the Denver Art Museum in education. And so throughout my college and professional career, I've always sought out opportunities to work with kids, from volunteering with the Boys and Girls Club, setting up activities at the local farmers market. And so anything I could do, bringing opportunities to help kids and families in my day job, was something I worked towards as well. And I used to work for the Air Force. We're a military family. My husband is in the Air Force. So any opportunity I had working on base, I would bring in to work with those families. And so I could really connect with kids and find out what worked and what didn't work. And so my work is actually based on the culmination of all those experiences and seeing how kids interact and learn. I was working with the parents and with the kids, but I really focused and honed in on how I could support children, and that meant supporting parents too. So the idea for my books and resources started when my husband came back from a deployment. We went on a trip and I went to a pineapple farm in Belize. And that point, and at that point, with an undergraduate degree in food science and nutrition, I could tell you all sorts of things about pineapple, why you should eat it, what the different enzymes did in your body. But I had no idea about how it was grown. And one pineapple plant may only produce one fruit in its entire fruiting season each year, and may only, or every 18 months, and may only produce 1 to 3 pineapples in the lifetime of a plant. And that was kind of my light bulb moment. Like, I'm a dietitian, I have a degree in food, and I couldn't tell you where our food came from, how it was grown.
Sure.
The food literacy piece was missing. And so that brought me to the idea of my first book, which is Where Do Bananas Come From? A Book of Fruits, where I take the reader on an adventure from farm to fork, using photosynthesis, using the different types of fruit. For example, pineapple is a multiple fruit, and the fruit life cycle. And then it takes you on the good for my body nutrients and the 5 senses and what the flavors and textures are of a food, to fun facts, how it's grown, when it's in season, a fun character. So all sorts of things that directly relate to what a child would be interested in learning about a food.
That's so neat, because it's makes it so much easier to kind of know and enjoy food when you can kind of geek out and share those informational points about where the food came from or the specifics about it. And I think that is something that a lot of parents don't think of as another way to get their kids to expand their food repertoire is just to have a better understanding of food and where it comes from and what makes it special about pineapples or broccoli or bananas or those different things, because that's often the missing piece, where I think if they understood where it came from, it makes me think, gosh, we should be a little bit more precious about our pineapples because of how much goes into creating one.
Exactly. When you go to the store and you're like, this pineapple is $5. Why is it $5? And then you realize how much love and energy and effort is put into this one fruit, it really starts to click. So my work is all about taking food play and STEAM education to build a healthy relationship with food while learning about the interesting parts of the things that we may eat or definitely are interested in exploring.
Well, I love that. And I think that's such a great approach, too, to just bring it and incorporate it into the other things in life that kids are learning, rather than it being something separate. And I think a lot of parents try and separate food from everything else because it's often a point of stress. Incorporate it back into all of the other things that we do, whether we're doing an art project or we're learning our numbers or all of the different components of life, because food is such an important part of life that if we're going to separate it and just have dinner time in its own silo away from everything else because it's too stressful, then we're going to miss out on a lot of different ways that, outside of just sitting down in the high chair at the table, that we can encourage, healthy food choices and a wide repertoire of foods to try. So could you share like a specific example? I think that the place where parents often meet the first pickiness is between 12 and 18 or 12 and 20 months of age for their child, and how a parent could go about using your resources or just using what they have to help their child take more of an interest and lead in trying new foods and being more adventurous with eating.
Absolutely. So I think you talk about this a lot as well, is talking about a mindset, so a growth mindset. And so, and part of that mindset is the different mantras that you have. And so this is one that I specifically use with my little people, is that we are food explorers in search of delicious. And so we have certain dialogue that we use. So instead of, ew, gross, I don't like that, we can say, I'm still exploring it, or I'm exploring it, and exploring is how I learn. And I use kind words to talk about foods. So at my dinner table, you don't have to eat it. You don't have to like it. It's there. But it needs to stay on your plate if it was put on your plate. And the way that we think about the food is positive, right? So we reframe it to this growth mindset. I don't have to like everything, but I can still explore it.
Sure.
Instead of getting upset, I can pretend I'm an investigator and notice things about this food. Like, I am still exploring this food because it is green and it looks slimy, and making it all about fun. I think that's the piece that we really miss with talking to our kids about food, is that it's about pressure. It's we as parents, we're so stressed out. We want to grow healthy kids. We want the kids to have good relationship with food, and we're so worried that they're not eating enough. Are they eating enough of the right things? That we're focused on the actual consumption. But I guarantee, if you just take a pause and be a little bit more laid back, take a breath, and make it about fun food play. Like you have this plate of things, and there's something that your child has never tried at the table, and you do something really silly with it. Like you take a grape tomato, and you make it a little silly nose, or you squish it in your fingers and you talk about, look, it squirted juice everywhere, and the seeds, they feel slimy, and ooh, it's a little bit sweet when I taste it. And just enjoy yourself. It doesn't have to be anything extra that you are adding more work to your day. You're sitting down
Sure.
for a meal, what you've offered for the family is there, and then doing something interesting with a food that they don't want to try. And this is the other thing, is you can't expect a child to eat it, even if you're doing those things.
Sure.
There should be zero expectation. It should just be about pressure-free fun and see what happens. Like last night my girls both love canned corn, or any kind of corn really, but my husband's gone a lot for work being in the military, and so sometimes I have really easy nights where things are frozen and in cans, or really easy like raw veggies that I can take out. And we're sitting at the table, and my 4-year-old starts practicing her math and counting every piece of corn that she's putting in. So here we just brought math play into our dinner table. And
Right.
so we had fish sticks. They were frozen fish sticks, and that's okay, because
Right.
we are real life parents, and sometimes dinner is fish sticks and
Sure.
canned corn and raw carrots. but you know, my 2-year-old, I don't think I mentioned this. I have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 10-week-old. So
Wow.
my 2-year-old, we started talking about like, oh, do you know what those are? That's fish. There's fish in there, and then it's breaded. And her relation to what fish is was a book that she really loves, The Pout Pout Fish. Are you familiar with The Pout Pout Fish?
Of course.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So she starts pouting her lip and saying, I'm the pout pout fish, and I'm eating the pout pout. And so I just connected where her food came from to something else that she's very familiar with. So she knows what she's eating. She knows where it comes from underneath the ocean, and she's willing to try it, even though it's an animal. And this is my child, who's mostly vegetarian. But
Gotcha.
yeah, so she explored something because we related it to something that was comfortable, and we kind of made it fun. And then she told me that she was the smooch fish.
Well, it sounds like one thing that you really teach is slowing down and just enjoying what the food is, rather than focusing on how many bites they took, or on you have to try this or you have to try that, and just slowing down and saying, okay, they will like some foods, they will still be exploring some foods. There's probably some things that they will have explored and said, this isn't for me, and that's okay.
It's not my favorite. I'm still exploring it.
Gotcha. So instead of really focusing in on you have to eat everything on your plate, or you can't leave the table, or you can't have dessert, or things like that, it just sounds like allowing the child to explore more and feel more comfortable with the food is what you focus on. Is that the case?
Exactly. Yes. And so on my social media pages, I really I focus on one new food every 2 weeks that kind of gives parents an in-depth view of how to pick, store, and eat. It's, unusual foods and everyday foods. We don't know how to necessarily pick the best tasting food. We don't know how to store it so it lasts as long as possible. We don't necessarily know that we can eat the entire part of different plants. For example, I'm focusing on broccoli right now. You can eat from floret to stalk.
Right.
And then I also offer opportunities for exploration and play using the idea of STEAM education to engage your kids. So I teach you how. And really all of my books and resources, and I have a very large free resource library on my website, I like to say is child-led and adult-facilitated. So it is all about child focus. So there's a lot of amazing dietitians out there and feeding professionals, OT, speech pathologists, but they are really working a lot of times on giving tools to the parent versus giving tools and resources for the child. So my approach is child-led, adult-facilitated, to become food explorers and engage with food in a meaningful way that doesn't have to be eating, but hopefully after so many exposures, they are able to try something. The other thing that I really focus on is empowering kids with literacy and the ability to articulate their likes and dislikes about food. So I always say, like, we don't like, your 2-year-old's going to say, I don't like this, I don't want this. And then I work on rephrasing like, oh, well, we're still exploring this. What is it that you're saying you don't like? And then we go through, the color, the flavor, the textures. And so really giving them the vocabulary, the adjectives to help describe those things that they are experiencing. And I think what's really interesting about this approach, when you talk to parents and you have taught your child all these adjectives, or they can relate to these words. And I have a book that's called 101 Descriptive Words for Food Explorers. So it's a visual guide for adventures in food. So it's meant for your littlest food explorer. They can see an image and relate to the image. And your older kiddos can then read 3 other adjectives that are similar. They can figure out what senses that adjective can describe. But what's really fascinating is when you as a parent can start connecting the dots of flavors and textures that your child doesn't care for. So I know my 4-year-old hates mushy. She can't stand anything mushy. So she, for the longest time, wouldn't eat avocado, eggs, or bananas. She'll eat a very firm banana. She will eat a firm avocado, and if I burn the eggs, it's her favorite thing. So it's understanding that it's not just about flavor, it's about texture and how it feels in their mouth that can kind of sway a child to like or still need to explore a food, because we all have texture and taste preferences, and we should honor those. But a lot of our kids don't have those words or the ability to tell you about those things. And even if they did, unless you ask and engage about them, they might not know how to tell you. So
I love that. That's so neat. That's such a neat approach, because you just think, well, broccoli's broccoli, and you either like it or you don't like it, and you have to eat it off your plate. But maybe it's because it's too firm or too mushy, or too sweet, or too salty, or too acidic. There's all those different things, and maybe
a descriptive word.
Well, very nice. I like to cook too, so maybe you can teach your child then, if you don't like this, maybe here's how we could adjust it. We could cook it a little bit longer. We could put some lemon juice on it. We could put some 100%. Salt or pepper on it.
That's the key.
Like that.
You got it. Yep. What don't you like about this? Or why are you still exploring this? What would make this better? Cheese. Cheese would make it better.
Well, yeah, cheese and ranch, obviously. But even that just makes me think about my 8-year-old who, we eat Brussels sprouts at our house, and usually they like them, and he wasn't into it. And one time I just added garlic to it just because we had some, and then he was all about it. And I was like, oh, and I noticed then too, he actually does like green beans better when there's garlic and cheese on them. But he liked the Brussels sprouts more when there was more lemon juice and garlic added to them. So it's not that he hates Brussels sprouts. It might be that he didn't care for the way that they were being prepared until we kind of said, oh, it seems like when we do garlic with the green beans, you like them better. How about we try that? Or how about you add those and help me cook, and then we'll see if you
even
care
better.
For it more.
Exactly. And for, like you said, my big girl, she likes them when they have a nice crusted edge. If I were to give her steamed Brussels sprouts, she wouldn't touch them. Even if I had added the same spices and seasonings, it's a texture thing. But when I pan sear them or I roast them in the oven and they get that nice crispy edge, she'll eat the entire, maybe nobody else gets to have any Brussels sprouts that night.
That is so interesting, and I never considered that as kind of another way to experience food with your child and help them to experience it and enjoy it too. Because I think everybody just wants this child that will just eat whatever's put in front of them, but no child is like that, and no adult is like that either, and just wants everything.
Exactly. You cannot expect a child to love and eat everything, because you as an adult have your own taste and texture preferences. We all have our own palates, and isn't it wonderful? It's part of our diversity in this world, and to explore new things. And if the same food around the globe is prepared completely different, and you may or may not like it, but it's all about trying something new and engaging with that food.
Well, I think that is it has certainly opened my mind, and I'm sure it's opened the minds of a lot of the listeners today as to another approach to enjoying food and dinner time and meal time with your child more. And I'm going to refer everybody to your website, which is experiencedeliciousnow.com, and your Instagram account, which is Kids Food Explorers, so that they can get all of the good information and learn from you about how to present food to their child and engage with them, because I think that is what has been missing a lot in what I see is that it's just about the mindset and how to get them to eat or offer foods or not offer foods. But I think really deep diving into where the food comes from, how it's prepared, what the different textures and flavors are, it's such a new realm for a lot of parents to think about. And it, for me, like, I like cooking, and I cook most of our family's meals for dinner and everything like that. It's another reminder of me to, like, encourage the kids to participate and share what they like and what they don't like.
Exactly. And do you mind if I share one more resource that I have that
Please,
I think a lot of parents would find helpful? So I have a My Food Explorer mat and a My Food Explorer comparison mat in my Etsy shop with a 20-page guide, and it has
awesome.
a couple of lesson plans in it too. But these placemats, the My Food Explorer mat allows you to put one food in the center of the mat, and this is outside of mealtime. So this isn't when you're just having a casual conversation. This is when you're serious about exploring something new, or maybe it's something that you've exposed to them before. But it takes you through the 5 senses, and it's just visual. So you notice, okay, this is raw broccoli. And it gives you a place to put how it's prepared. And then you have all the prompts for the 5 senses that you can either use a dry erase marker or a dry erase crayon if you use it laminated. And so then you can really explore on that placemat. And then the My Food Explorer comparison mat would take, say, for example, raw broccoli and roasted broccoli. And then you could notice the color differences, the texture differences, the flavor differences. And that can really help continue that conversation and diving deep into why your child likes it, say, raw but doesn't like it roasted, or likes it roasted but doesn't like it raw, and get a little bit deeper and learn more vocabulary words and increasing food literacy.
Fantastic. Well, we'll put that in the show notes too, because that sounds like a great resource and a great visual way to have children experience their foods in a new way and grow to enjoy them more, find out what they like and what they don't like about the food. So thank you so much, Dani.
With food.
Indeed.
So
well, it's been a pleasure to talk. Good luck with that little growing family of yours. And please, I'll recommend that everybody follows along at Kids Food Explorers and learns more from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time today and for having me.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, will you hit the thumbs up button and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos that I put out? And if you'd like to learn more or watch another video, you can click right over here to keep going. Have a good day. Keep up the good work.